and be open for the public, as well as both parties will now come back into the chambers for the hearing process to begin. If you are just joining us, this is a live proceeding of the Senate plenary sitting. This day, the Senate will be sitting in plenary to consider or to hear and determine the removal from office, or the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Dr. Robert Monda, the Deputy Governor of Kisii County. And this, you will realize that the impeachment hearing is done by way of plenary. Remember last week when the Senate considered this particular issue that was brought forth by the County Assembly of Kisii, the Senate did not agree on a committee way that was to be formed by an 11-member, or rather by 11 members of the senators, but it did not sail through, thereby forcing the senators to agree to hear and determine this case by way of plenary. So that is why this particular hearing and determination over the proposed removal from office of Dr. Monda will be done by way of plenary. Otherwise, a Senate normally has two ways of going by this, either by committee or by plenary. And since the attempt to set up an 11-member committee to hear this impeachment did not sail through on the floor of the House last week, the House will be hearing and determining this case by way of plenary. The Deputy Governor is facing 4 charges. This is after the County Assembly of Kisii 2 weeks ago voted to have the Deputy Governor removed from office. And by law, this case or this impeachment was moved to the Senate to make that determination. Remember, this falls within the mandate of the Senate, which oversees the functions of the county government. So the 4 charges the Deputy Governor is facing: gross violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, gross misconduct, crimes under national law. These are the charges that the senators will be hearing and will determine later on. The Speaker of the Senate, as you can see, is walking into the chambers. This is Honorable Amason Jeffakingi. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good morning.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, tukusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba utuajalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, can ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The Speaker has directed that quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. This is, of course, a pursuant to the House Standing Order. Remember, this is a plenary sitting, and at the commencement of the House business, members that are needed to be present for the House to have achieved its quorum is 15 members. But at the commencement of the House, if there is not that a required number present in the chambers, then the Speaker will order that a quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. Of course, this is to let members who may be within the precincts of Parliament but yet to get to the chambers to be able to make their way to the chambers. Back to the business of the day is that the Senate this morning is sitting to hear and determine the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Dr. Robert Monda. This is the Deputy Governor of Kisii County, and this follows the vote by the Kisii County Assembly 2 weeks ago to have the governor be removed from office, of course, accusing him of 4 charges. This include gross violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, gross misconduct, crime and crimes under national law. The Senate last week decided or voted to have this impeachment process be done by way of plenary after attempts to establish the 11-member committee that would also have looked into this matter failed, and the members decided that this matter be looked at by way of plenary. That is what will be taking place from this morning. The sitting is beginning at 9 a.m. But what we know is that we will be receiving a communication from the Speaker at from 9 to 9:20. This is according to the order of business for the Senate. This communication, of course, remember there are 2 parties involved in this. The Senate being the determinant of this particular case. So the 2 parties include the County Assembly as well as the Deputy Governor's side. So in this sitting, we will have the senators inside the chambers as well as the County Assembly side and the Deputy Governor's side, and the Speaker will make a communication. This is, of course, to welcome the parties or those in the chambers, and of course acknowledge their presence and indicate that this sitting will be done in a plenary way. And of course later, after that particular communication, the senators will proceed on a closed session. This is a pre-hearing meeting for the senators in a closed session from 9:20 to around 11 a.m. where the senators will be furnished by the documents or the documentation that has been brought forth by both parties to the Senate with regards to the case before the Senate. This is a quorum bell that is underway. 15 members need to be inside the chambers for the House to commence its business, and this is pursuant to the House Standing Order, much as the chair is taken. But if the House does not have the required number of members inside, then the House cannot commence its businesses because the quorum has not been achieved, and the House has to abide by the standing order. So the bell will be on, and once the quorum is achieved, then the Sergeant at Arms will alert the clerk, and the Speaker will call the House to order for the proceedings to continue. Remember, once the County Assembly forwarded the letters for the proposed removal from office of the Kisii Deputy Governor to the Senate, both parties, that is the Speaker of the County Assembly of Kisii and the Deputy County Governor of Kisii, were on 8th of March 2024 served by the Senate with invitations to appear before the Senate. That is today, the 13th of March, the year 2024. And these parties were required to file their documentation with the office of the clerk of the Senate by 5 p.m. Monday. This is the Monday of 11th of March 2024. And in this case, the parties were meant to indicate the mode of appearance before the Senate, whether they will be in person or by advocate, or in person and by advocate. So in this case, we will be seeing the parties, that is the County Assembly. We will be getting to know who their side of legal team is, who their witnesses are, and in the documentation, if they have audio or if they have videos or they have sworn affidavits, among other documentation that they will have deemed fit to present before the Senate to support their case. The side of the Deputy Governor also will be able to know, we will be able to know who their legal team is just in a few minutes, and their witnesses, if they have any videos or any audio that they would like to present before the Senate to counter these accusations that are facing the Deputy Governor of Kisii County. The required documentation that both parties were required to furnish the office of the clerk of the Senate also include, for the County Assembly, the designation of not more than 3 members of the County Assembly who would attend and represent the Assembly in the proceedings before the Senate. Also, the names and addresses of the persons to be called as witnesses, if any, that is for both parties, and witness statements containing a summary of the evidence to be presented by witnesses before the House, and any other evidence that will be relied on as the hearing and the determination of this particular impeachment progresses. The submissions by the County Assembly of Kisii to the Senate is that the County Assembly would appear before the Senate in person and by advocate. So in this case, later in the proceedings, once the Senate is done with its closed session, the County Assembly will be invited to introduce the team, the legal team that will be representing them. Remember, when it wrote to the Senate, it indicated that it would appear before the Senate in person and by advocate. So in this case, they will be required to introduce their legal team as well, and also introduce their witnesses, if any, before the Senate. The County Assembly team of advocates that will be representing it include Mr. Ndegwa Njiru, Mr. Elias Mutuma, Mr. Ndegwa Charles Mwangi, Ms. Anne Munyoki, and Mr. Victor Wahomemburu, who is an IT technical production person. This is the team of advocates, or the legal team that the County Assembly presented the names before the Senate that will be representing them in arguing out their case for the proposed removal from office of the Deputy Governor of Kisii. If you are just joining us, is that the Senate this morning is holding a plenary sitting to hear. All right, allow me to hand you over the Speaker.
Senator Chute. now. Clerk, kindly proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, you will recall that at a sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, the 7th of March, 2024, I appointed today, Wednesday, 13th of March, and tomorrow, Thursday, 14th of March, 2024, are the days when the Senate will hear the charges for the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Dr. Robert Monda, the Deputy Governor of Kisii County. At the sitting of the Senate held yesterday, Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2024, a procedural motion for the alteration of the sitting time of the Senate for Wednesday, 13th and Thursday, 14th March 2024 was moved and approved to facilitate the impeachment hearing of the Deputy Governor for Kisii County. Consequently, a hearing program has been prepared and appended to the order paper for today. Honorable Senators, as is the tradition, and in line with the schedule of activities for an impeachment hearing in plenary, the Senate will hold a closed preparatory session to deliberate on the management of the investigation. The objective of the preparatory session is to ensure that the process is conducted seamlessly and concluded timely and in line with the requirements set out under the County Governments Act and the Senate standing orders. I now therefore direct the parties, all members of the public and the media to withdraw from the chamber and the galleries, and that any form of broadcast from the chamber to cease forthwith. In accordance with the hearing program for an impeachment hearing and plenary, the open session will commence at 11 a.m.